Professional winner.
Welcome today to the Professional Winner Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Conyers. I am excited to bring you Grammy nominated Laura Strickling. How are you doing today, Laura?
I'm very well, thank you.
This was inevitable, this interview. Laura's doing amazing things. She's currently in New York doing a TV show, working with my brother, Joshua, who we had up here recently. And talking to my brother about what he's doing, your name kept coming up. And he's like, yeah, Laura's Grammy nominated. I'm like, hold on, we have to stop right there. Grammy nominated. So we had to find a way to make this happen. So I thank you for coming on, for coming to my platform and using your platform to bring a very wonderful episode here today for the viewers. So how are you doing today, Laura?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to get straight into it. I'm going to ask you some very general questions. We're going to talk about your journey in music, your tape, Confessions, that is Grammy nominated, like I said, for the fourth time already. So tell me a little bit about you, how you got into the music world, and kind of your upbringing and things like that.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Chicago, and I kind of fell into singing by accident. I always was in choir. I always liked to sing. My father's a minister, so I always sang in church. And I was always that girl who sings, but I certainly didn't know about classical music. And went to college, and because I like to sing, I became a voice major, but I really didn't know what that meant. And I'd never really had like a voice lesson. I'd never practiced voice, but I decided to become a voice major out of nowhere. And then I got a phone call my freshman year from the Chicago Lyric Opera's subscription services. And they said, we have a special student deal. I don't even know how they got my dorm room phone number, but they did. And I said, you know what? I have like no money. I'm 18 years old, but I'm a voice major and I've never been to an opera and I should probably do that. So I bought that subscription. It was in the very top row of the top balcony. Could barely see anybody on the stage, but I went to every opera at the Chicago Lyric while I was in college. And I just fell in love with it. And you kind of go get a bachelor's degree in music and voice, and then went to the Peabody Conservatory in Baltimore and did a master's degree in voice. And, you kind of go through those years of school full steam ahead, knowing what you're going to do with your life. And I got to the end of grad school and had no idea how to become a singer. And, there's this conventional wisdom that after grad school, you audition for young artist programs. There's every major and a lot of the smaller opera companies in the United States have young artist programs. And after grad school, you get into a young artist program, and then if you do that, then you're gonna have a career. But I didn't get into any of those young artist programs. That first kind of round of auditions out of grad school, and so I just kind of stopped. I said, I don't know how to make a singing career happen. I had some technical, like singing is kind of your body is an instrument. How you work that, we call that technique. I had some like big technical problems that I didn't know how to fix. I didn't have a teacher at the time, and I didn't know how to fix any of those things. So I walked away. And so I had gotten married, and my husband got this grant to study Arabic in Morocco. So we moved to Morocco for a year, and I studied Arabic, and with no thought in mind that I would ever be a singer again. And we came back from Morocco, and I nannied, and I was kind of trying to figure out, like, I don't know who I am if I'm not a singer, but like, what do I want to do with my life? And my husband just looked at me and was like, well, you're supposed to be a singer. You should be a singer. And I was like, but I can't. At that point, I'd taken like 3.5 years off. I hadn't taken a voice lesson. I hadn't done an audition. I didn't have a network. I still had those big technical problems I needed to fix if I was going to do it. And somehow I found an amazing teacher in Washington, D.C., which is where we were living at the time. Her name is Elizabeth Daniels. And she just I had taken so much time off. All of those big habits I had that were hurting me were gone. I got to like kind of start from scratch and just build from the ground up with this wonderful teacher. And she's the kind of person teacher who's like, you need to be doing competitions. Competitions help you, grow as an artist. You learn kind of who else is singing and what everyone else is doing and how you fit into the field. And it gives you a goal to practice for. And so she started, recommending competitions for me. And I started winning competitions. And so that turned into kind of other opportunities in the field. A lot of times when you win classical singing competition, you get a performance opportunity attached. So I started getting things on my resume from that. But somehow, at 29 years old, I started singing again. And now I turned 40 this year. And I turned 40 this year.
That's a blessing.
But, like against all odds, I got a Grammy nomination last week. So it's been kind of clawing my way back for the last 11 years to like say, am I a singer? Am I really doing it? And then there's like this like huge like bomb from the universe, like validation.
You embody everything that a professional winner is.
Well, thank you.
You believed in your passion. You kept going. You didn't put a time frame on it. You didn't let your gap interfere with what God has intended you to do. So I have to clap for you. Gotta clap for you, Laura. We have to clap for you. But we unpacked a lot, and we're going to try to break this down. And if you have been following the podcast, if you have been following our journey, we have interviewed multiple musicians, and you see a common trend. Oh, at 13, this was my passion, and I did this, and I'm 15 years in, and that wasn't your journey. No. And like when you say technique, I've seen and grew up around opera my entire life. And everybody I've met, everybody who is still trying to figure it out, everybody who's at the top of their game, it took so many years and so much training, and it's always this straight and narrow path, right? It's usually very hard to sway off that path and do what you have just accomplished. But you said some interesting things that I want to go to before we get back into the Grammy nomination and accomplishing what you just accomplished, not being on this straight and narrow path that opera usually entails. Morocco. Yeah. Okay. Chicago. Subscription. Morocco. We did a lot there. Okay. So you get this subscription, which is like, I never even heard of that.
Well, it's so that you can see every opera in the entire season. Like everything they show that year, you've got to see.
So it's no training. It's just you're watching opera.
I'm just watching. Yeah.
Wow. So it wasn't like a formal training, like a kind of program to get you into opera. It was just, this is what we do. Do you like it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, just like we want you to be part of our audience and being able, I mean, as a student of opera, of course it was training. You're sitting there, you're watching some of the world's best artists do what they do at the top of their game in one of the best opera companies in the world. So, is it training? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I would say crucial. If you really want to be in this, you have to know what people are doing.
And that was the moment for you.
Yeah, for
sure.
Like,
this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think so. Again, there's no way to know how you get to do that.
Exactly.
You try to do the best, be the best singer you can be, the best artist you can be, the best actor you can be. That there's like 100 things that go into it. Yeah. But just to get to that level, like you watch and you say, like, what do they have that I don't? How do I get it? What's the path going to be?
Would you say it was the passion? That's when you developed your passion.
Yeah, for sure.
So when we talk about layers of being a professional winner, and this idea of following your dreams and taking step one, that was your step one. You found the passion.
Yep, absolutely.
And I heard we then talked about your husband and going to Morocco. Mm-hmm. And I see why you guys are married now. Because he said, your passion is singing. Yeah. And that is just such a beautiful thing. What's your husband's name?
His name is Taylor.
Taylor. When I come to St. John's, we're gonna have a drink. You're great. You're great. That motivation, right?
Get yourself a supportive spouse, lady.
Get yourself a supportive spouse, because even you probably didn't realize that. You knew it deep down inside.
Well, it seemed impossible.
It seemed impossible.
Right? And walking away, and when you know what it takes, I walked away. I knew what it took to get back to even where I was before I walked away. So it just seemed like this impossible dream, but also like an impossible amount of work. I knew how much needed to go into it, and I was like, do I have it in me? Can I do it? And he really believed in me. And I truly don't think I would be sitting here today if my husband didn't believe in me and just like, keep me honest with myself.
That is awesome. So now you go to Morocco. Mm-hmm. You study Arabic.
Yep.
With your husband. And I'm so sorry. Can you say it again to the audience why you guys went to Morocco, and explain that journey to me?
Sure. So my husband was in law school, and he was really interested in international law, and he was really interested in Sharia law and how it related to like the U.S. law. So he did a lot of studies at Georgetown Law that were kind of down that path. And as a part of that, he applied for this, it's called the Boren Fellowship from the US government to study a language, and he chose Arabic. And we were going to go to Yemen, but then there was like this bombing there right before we were supposed to go. So we quickly detoured to it's the Arabic Language Institute of Fez. And again, at this point, I wasn't singing. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I'd been putting him through law school, and he was like, "Do you want to stay here, stay in your job, or do you want to come with me to Morocco?" I was like, "Are you kidding me? I'm going to Morocco. I'm not staying here." And honestly, like, I've always, in college, I'd studied French in high school, Italian and German in college, and I love languages. And the idea of studying a language that was not based on the Latin alphabet, something completely different than what I'd ever done, just sounded like such a blast. And it was. I loved it. It's the 1 year of my life I think I would relive if I could, because, we had no responsibilities except for learn the language and like live, this like la vie boheme. We're students. We're just, doing whatever we wanted to do. We traveled the whole country. During the year we were there, we tried to see like every corner we could. And it was really amazing. It's a beautiful country and has so many things to see.
All right, guys, if you're listening, the rest of the podcast will be in Arabic. I'm joking. So that's awesome. So now we're going to fast forward a little bit. You're 29. All right.
Yep.
You're getting back into music now. You meet this awesome trainer.
Yep.
And we're going to say the name again.
Elizabeth Daniels.
Elizabeth Daniels. Shout out to Elizabeth.
She's amazing.
Now, take me through, because I know dealing with a trainer, getting back into it, you're nervous. Mm-hmm. There's confidence issues, like Big always, time. Which a lot of people don't realize. Sometimes you turn on that TV and you see people are successful. You see people who made it, and they have this charisma about them. Like now, you may not see it on camera. They may say, "Oh my God, like Laura's just talking amazing. Jonathan, it's just smooth." But there's always nerves. There's always, you're getting to know people. You're trying to break down people. So there's nerves. There's confidence issues, which is normal. Mm-hmm. But how do you overcome those things? How do you get back into it, full-fledged into it, and say, "I'm ready"?
For me, it was doing it. So the first few competitions that I did, right, when I came back to singing, I would get dry mouth, like so bad that I couldn't swallow. My tongue, my throat, everything was so dry. And obviously, if you know anything about singing, you drink a lot of water, you need to have a well-lubricated instrument to sing well. But I would get up there, and my nervous response, my body's response to that release of adrenaline was to just go so dry that I could barely swallow. And that became like, then I was afraid of that happening. You become afraid of your body's chemical fear response. So learning how to manage that chemical fear response is part of being a singer in general, or being a public speaker, or being someone who has to do anything that confront fear. But the more you do it, the more you are exposed to that chemical release and to that fear response, the more you learn how to manage it. So over time, the more I did it, the less dry I got, or the less my body shook. I remember one competition where my legs started shaking so hard that my heel made this like tap 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 on the stage while I was singing, and I could not control it. And I it was like, oh my God, like my heel is tapping during this aria, So, but over time, I knew exactly what was going to happen when I walk out on stage, and I could say, you are safe, you are fine, you know your music, you can do this, and it became kind of part of the process.
I want to elaborate on that a little bit, because even for me, right, like if you look at the pre-episodes of the podcast, right, I say over 1,000 times, right? And we're still new to this. We're still learning how to get comfortable in front of the camera. And a lot of times when I talk to people like you, Josh, a lot of opera singers that I know, and people are doing amazing things, you guys are just gifted at this, it seems like.
It's work.
It's work.
It
takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
But during that process, sometimes you're communicating, you're talking, and you start to get defeated, right? Now, when you're tapping on stage after that event, what goes to your mental? What makes Laura wakes up the next day and say, "It's okay. I can move past this, and I'm going to continue to chase this passion and not give up on myself or say I can't do this because it's not as perfect and clean as I want it to be at this moment"?
I think that answer is going to be different for every single person. But for me, competitions were never about beating someone else. They were never about getting first place. I was seeing a voice teacher once a week. I was seeing a vocal coach at least once a week to work on repertoire. And when you're working that hard, to know that there is something you're working towards was really important to me. I need to learn this song and learn the language and learn the style so well that when I get on that stage, I'm proud of what I've done and that I can walk away going, it doesn't matter what the judges decided. Like they have their subjective, there's a million reasons you might not win that have nothing to do with your performance. But like when I walk off and I say, I did all of this work and I got on that stage and did what I meant to do, I can walk away and sleep. Now, if I don't prepare, if I don't know my music very well, if I know, because you know, being honest with yourself is admitting when you haven't done the work and put in the time to equal a solid result, and you have to own up to that too. That's when I can't sleep. When I say I've accepted too many gigs and I know like, oh, I should have said no to that one because I didn't have enough time to prepare for it the way I wanted. And now I'm in over my head. And then you go do the performance and maybe it's fine, but you know it could have been better. That's when I have a hard time sleeping.
And this is great because, like you said, you weren't worrying about the next person.
No.
You weren't worrying about trying to achieve an immediate objective. You was worrying about how do you get better at your craft.
Because that's when it's fun.
And that's when it's fun. And that's when it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
And the more that you can work at this craft, the more you can accept that this is what I need to accomplish. This is about me. You're going to get better. And that's why you are where you are.
Well, I hope so. You know, I kind of have mixed feelings about it because I have so many friends who are extremely talented and extremely driven who maybe didn't get nominated for a Grammy this year. I'm a Grammy voter, so I see all of the names of the people who are on that list, and I don't think for a second that any of them are less talented or less devoted than I am. I am so grateful that I got a nomination. I am like over the moon shocked. But it doesn't mean that I think, oh, well, it's because I wanted it more than they did. I don't think that, I think I got lucky this time around, and that I hope that, they get recognized for the work they're doing in other ways.
Now let's go into it. You have your album, Confessions.
Yes.
Take me through that process and creating it. And, this is a opera album.
It is. So it's classical song.
Mm-hmm. And you are a soprano.
Mm-hmm.
So take me through the development of the album, the journey, and show the viewers why you are Grammy nominated. Let's talk about it.
It is such a saga. So it all starts with a friend, my pianist, the woman who I started working with like moment one when I came back to singing when I was 29. Her name is Joy Schreier. She lives in DC. And I believe really strongly in kind of like honoring people's investments in your life. When I started singing again, she was coaching me through songs. She was helping me with style, with language. And not only is she just a fantastic pianist, she's one of my best friends. So at some point she said, Laura, I heard this song cycle. We call them song cycles when it's a group of songs that have been written by one composer intended to be performed together. So she said, I heard this song cycle that you need to know about. Like when I heard it, I immediately thought of you. It is so you. And so we actually had a hard time tracking it down. This is like just before kind of anything you wanted to find on the internet, you could find on the internet. This was, I don't know, I think it was like 2009 or 10. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but the internet is, constantly changing. Yeah. And so we had a hard time tracking down the composer, but we finally did. We emailed her out of nowhere and we said, we love this song cycle. Is there any way, it was originally written for soprano, piano, cello, and violin. And I said, is there any way you could do a transcription for just soprano and piano? And she, we'd love to use it for competitions was kind of my idea. And she said, yeah, absolutely. Her name is Clarissa Saad. She's the best. So she wrote us this transcription. I ended up winning a lot of competitions because of that song. It's called Turn Back the Clock. But that's part of the whole journey. So I had this song cycle that felt so me, so perfect. And I was like, every time I sang it, people said, where do I find a recording of this? But like, you couldn't even buy a score of this. Like it did not exist, right? So I had it in my mind, like so many, this is when you see the market wants something, you have it in your mind, like, how do I provide this thing to the market? So the whole idea for this CD started in like 2010. But you need money. I needed the rest of the CD. And so I started going down this path of trying to curate the rest of like what makes this song cycle turn into an entire album that people want to hear, that is music and composers that I want to promote, that feels very not just beautiful, but like meaningful. And so it took me a few years to kind of say, this is what I want to put on my CD. And then I had a baby. Well, so many things happened in my life. Okay, so
we got time. Let's break it down.
Oh God,
let's break it down.
So I don't even know where to start. Okay, so my husband, after law school, he started. He got a grant he got a fellowship from Stanford University to go to Afghanistan and start a law school at the American University of Afghanistan. So at that point, before when he was going to go to Morocco, he was like, do you want to come? And I was like, yes. And then he said, I want to go to Afghanistan. Do you want to come? And I was like, because at that point I'd started singing again and I was having a little bit of traction. And I said, if I go this time, I can't walk back again. Like I have come this far to come back. I can't leave again and expect to come back again. So I said, I'm going to stay in New York and DC, kind of split my time between there. And then I'll come. I visited him every couple of months there. So at that point, I'm pulling together all of the strands of what I want to record, getting agreements from the composers. And then my husband got another job in the Virgin Islands. So we moved to the Virgin Islands. And then surprise, I was going to have a baby. And that wasn't expected necessarily. And so that changed timelines. Again, I've got this CD that I've told composers, I'm going to make this CD. And then all these major life things happened. So finally, when the baby was a year old, I got into the studio and started recording the CD. And a month after I started recording it, we had the hurricanes in the Caribbean. And so I had planned to go back and record the rest of the CD just a couple months after I started, but everything was blown into the ocean. My entire life, I was so traumatized. I still had this baby. We didn't have electricity for months. And it was just the CD became the very last thing on my mind. And it wasn't until 2019, I think, that I finally got back in the studio and recorded the rest of it. And then, so there's this huge gap in the middle of the project of just recording it. And then I had these files. I had the things I'd recorded, but I was working a lot, and being a mom and trying to be a working singer was overwhelming. And I knew that I had these recordings that I needed to figure out a way to get them from my computer into a physical form that I could sell to people. But I only had enough mental space for keep my career going, be a good mom. And I could not think about that. And then the pandemic happened. And I was sitting on an island in the middle of the Caribbean with no gigs. And suddenly I had all the time in the world to work on the CD that I'd had on the burner since 2017. And I called up a producer that I had worked with on a previous project that he'd pulled me in for. His name is Bob Attia, and he's got a label called Yarlung in LA. And I said, hey, I know you usually put out your own projects that you've recorded, but I have these files, and here we are, both of us, we're sitting around, we can't do what we do. Is there any way you'd be interested in releasing this CD? And he jumped at it, and he said, I think it was July or something. And he said, let's get this thing out by November, which is an insane amount, short amount of time to try to put a CD out. But we did it, and it came out November 20th last year. And, I always wonder, if the pandemic hadn't happened, would it still be just sitting in my computer somewhere?
Would you not be Grammy nominated right
now?
Yeah. This is awesome. And as you're talking, you're bringing me back to why I started this podcast. Sometimes when you watch people, you look at people who are doing great things, you're going to be at the Grammys and it's wow, A to B. Look at where Laura's at. But it's never like that.
Never.
And the beauty about podcasts and sharing these platforms and telling the story is that you get to unpack the person. You know, just being a mother is hard.
It is.
In general, right?
Yep.
So, and now you're in the Virgin Islands. Your husband just sounds amazing.
He is.
Right? So he's doing all of these things. He's unpacking and he's making real world change. Now you're making real world change, but throughout this whole process, you're still trying to find time to continue your passion and do what you love. And like when we talked about in the beginning of this episode, it was passion. It was something that you knew you was going to do. You had support systems. It was this so many things happening that's leading you back to something that's inevitable. And it's just so wonderful to hear these things and talk about this real journey and give this real perception of what it takes to really be successful or to be at the top of your profession. It's never as black and white as social media, the internet, blogs or whatever. All of those things may make it seem like it is. So salute to you.
Well, thank you.
I'm excited. We should send this clip to all the Grammy nominees that's voting to let them know that this is more than just an album. This is a masterpiece. This is your life work. And to be able to be nominated with all of that you had to deal with in this whole process is just amazing.
It's been a journey.
It's been a journey. But let's continue to unpack it. Let's continue to talk about it.
I cannot believe my eyes. Is this some sort of joke? Perhaps I'm in the twilight zone. Perhaps my mirror broke. This isn't me. How could I be the girl I'm looking at? I'm ultra thin. I'm bones and skin. Is that a lump of fat? Wasn't it just yesterday my calendar replete with guys who plea on bended knee for us to simply meet? But now I spend my nights at home, repress my appetite. I starve myself, wake up alone, and still have cellulite. Hide out imperfections, trying to fit in. Why can't we accept it? Ladies, we can never win. That was Turn Back the Clock from Confessions by Clarice Assad. My new CD, Confessions, is available now on any streaming platform or wherever you purchase your CDs.
Welcome back to the Professional Winner Podcast. We unpacked a lot with Laura. We're excited to continue this conversation. Laura, how you feeling?
Good.
You're feeling good? Why not? She has a Grammy nomination, guys. Come on. Of course she feels good. So, I got to ask you a question. So, you live in St. Thomas, right?
I do.
Why are you in New York City right now?
I am in New York filming a television opera with a group called Experiments in Opera. And I have never done a filmed opera before, so this is a new experience for me. I am learning all kinds of new skills, and it is very boundary stretching.
That is awesome. When is the TV show coming out?
I believe next year sometime. I know that there's like a premiere screening in May, so it'll probably end up on television a little bit after that, but I believe it's going to be on PBS. So,
TV show, Grammy nomination. Can you adopt me?
I love being a mom, so yes.
That is awesome. So one of the places that is very near and dear to my heart is the Virgin Islands. I always go to St. John. I own in St. John. I think it's one of the most beautiful places in the world.
It is.
So we have to talk about it. Let's talk about St. Thomas and how is it living there?
Absolutely. So we've been there for 7 years, which, my father was a minister and we moved a lot when I was a kid. And then as an adult, I've moved around a lot. And this is the longest I've ever lived anywhere in my entire life. And it took a lot, especially because I was a traveling singer. I lived there, but I was constantly on a plane, certainly before the pandemic. And it kind of took being there during the pandemic to really all of a sudden feel like, this is home. Like I have a community, I have friends, I have people that I count on and count on me. And it's most people who go there go for a little bit of time. and they go on vacation, they see it as this beautiful place that makes them feel good. And it's like, it took me so long to like be like, it's home, and like there's the most wonderful people. And we went through the hurricanes in 2017 there, and the way that the community worked together to pull itself out of that devastation. I mean, I will never forget the night after the hurricanes. We came out of the basement and just seeing literally not one green thing left on the trees, and just feeling like there is no way that any of this is ever going to be the same again. It will how could any of this get better? I mean, it was the worst feeling I've ever had in my life. But over the last 3 years, 4 years, I've watched a community come together and make it better. And it's made me a more hopeful person. It's made me trust my fellow man a lot more. And then, kind of going into the pandemic and watching the way the community has pulled together to make sure. I mean, we were one of the first places to adopt masks, and we still haven't dropped them. And just knowing that like we're all working to make sure that everyone's safe and healthy has been a real comfort through all of this.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Put that well together. And when I didn't get to go to St. John for 2 years, and everybody kept saying, we don't see that many iguanas no more. Like, things are changing. I'm sorry, it won't be the same place that you visited a couple of years ago. When I went this last July, like you said, it was the same feeling. And I don't live there yearly. I'm usually there in the summer, but it was the same feeling. It was that feeling of, this is wonderful, this is beautiful, and nothing can change. Nothing can stop how beautiful and how great the people are of the Virgin Islands. And COVID. So I know they had a hurricane. I want to go back to COVID and the effect that has on musicians. I know it was very, very tough. Most of your job is performing. Yeah. Being in front of people. Yeah. Engaging an audience. And with all the restrictions and what was going on in our nation, that just wasn't possible.
So I was in New York in March 2020 I was starting opera rehearsals, and I was supposed to be here for a month. And my parents had they're from Chicago, but they had flown to the Virgin Islands to help my husband with our daughter for the month that I was going to be gone. And opera rehearsals started. And I remember getting on that plane thinking, should I be going to New York right now? Like, is this going to become a thing? It wasn't clear then. On like March 6th, when I left St. Thomas, it wasn't clear that it was going to be a thing. It seemed like it might, but it wasn't, an absurd thing to get on a plane to New York on March 6th. But by March 13th, the day I left, it was an absurd thing, and it felt like a panic rush back to the island. And, I think Trump had shut down flights to Europe the day before. And I just thought, oh my God, if they shut down flights to St. Thomas and I can't get home to my child for God knows how long, like it was just like the truest panic. And I got back and my parents were there, and I was too afraid to let them fly home. So they ended up staying with us in St. Thomas for 3 months in our 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. It was kind of tight quarters, but then I was on the island, and no one was performing. Everything shut down, rightly so. And it took a few months for the kind of like, is this ever going to end? Am I ever going to be a singer again to set in? For a while there, it was just like focusing on the job at hand, keeping everybody safe, making sure everybody's happy and healthy. But after a while, like when it stretched into a year of not leaving the island, I think a lot of performers started to think, is there going to be anything for me after this? And then it stretched into a year and a half. The first time I left the island after March 13th, 2020 was to come start the production for this TV show we're doing in June of this year. So, was it May? It was May. But, that was a long time to just be sitting there going like, am I a performer anymore? Is a performer if they're not performing? And the arts sector was hit so badly financially by that shutdown that there's a lot of groups that closed during the pandemic and probably won't reopen. So that means that there are fewer jobs for artists in general on the flip side of the pandemic. And so there probably will be a lot of us who will see that we just can't keep it going anymore. And I know, and the jury's still up for me too. We don't know what the world is going to look like. I want to believe that humans need the arts to feed our souls, and that we will find ways to continue to create art and to continue to support our community in real substantial soul sustaining ways, crucial ways. But, you know, that's not necessarily the same thing as being able to pay your bills. And, you know, that there's a real reality there that we're all just struggling.
Sometimes passion doesn't equal comfort.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Now, to the viewers, to the wonderful professional family, what are ways that they can help? What is ways that the audience can help people in the arts? Are there programs out there? Are there ways to give back to make sure that we can continue to feed the soul and we can continue to be able to indulge in something that has been a part of our history for, I don't even know how to label it, thousands and thousands of years. Classical music has always been a part of our culture.
I think that it always comes back to community. I believe really deeply in interpersonal relationships and looking around you and seeing who is doing things that help the people directly around you. So who in your neighborhood is putting on a concert series? And see if you can buy a ticket, make a donation. Even $5, $10 is going to like make them feel like, man, someone cares that we're doing this. Like we can keep going. And then, you know, kind of there's kind of concentric rings of like, these are the people making music in my neighborhood. These are the people making music in my community. And these are people making music in my city, in my state, in my country. And as you are able to, not just donate money, but time, or say that you have a business that can advertise, you know, in whatever, you know, there's a million ways that you can look around and say, what do I have to give? And it doesn't necessarily have to be your wallet, but just finding ways to do that. And if we all do it, if we all work, we all come out ahead.
And after you win your Grammy, and we are on the forefronts preaching this message, people are going to listen to us. Don't worry, Laura. Now, let's talk about that. Are you excited to sit at the Grammys?
I'm so excited. So my mom is a dressmaker. She used to make it for a living, literally make gowns, wedding gowns, prom gowns. And so she made my wedding gown when I got married 17 years ago. And she's going to make my Grammy gown because I just, you know, I wouldn't dream of just, you know, it has to be that kind of personal, special. Like my mom is the best. And so she's going to make my Grammy gown. I was buying fabric this week so she can do that. And just the idea that like, I don't know, I just want to see it's something I've always seen from afar, and to be part of it is just absolutely mind-blowing. It's just going to be so much fun.
How was the process? Did you get like this golden box? And like people jumped out the box with your Grammy ticket.
It was exactly that. No, just kidding. Like dancers. Yeah. No. You know, I had just gone to run errands, and my daughter was at school, and I was driving home, and actually one of the cast members from the show I'm doing right now, the opera show, texted me and said, "Congratulations." And I was like, "For what?" And he was like, "Grammys?" And I was like, "Grammy what?" He's like, "You got nominated." And I immediately started sobbing, like uncontrollably sobbing. Almost drove my car off the road. If you've ever been to St. Thomas, you know it's like a bunch of mountains.
Oh my God.
Like literally almost drove my car off the road. I called my pianist and like had her on speakerphone, and we're both sobbing. And, you know, then I called my husband, and he's like, Are you okay? Like he didn't know, like he couldn't understand what I was saying. And it was just like, again, I've been working for so many years, and, you know, I didn't go to, you know, Juilliard, and I didn't get into a young artist program as an opera singer. And I don't have any of these like things where people are like, "Oh, Laura Strickling, soprano from the Metropolitan Opera." Like I haven't sung at the Met, you know, but like I suddenly have this thing where I can say Grammy nominated soprano, Laura Strickling, and no one can ever take that from me. It's just so overwhelming.
And as you see, we talked about it throughout the whole episode. It's the journey. You know, you put a lot of time in. You deserve as much as this as anybody with those big names and whatever, you know, education that, you know, usually requires on this narrow path for a soprano singer.
If you asked 29-year-old Laura Strickling, who just got back from Morocco and was trying to sing again, if she would ever end up nominated for Grammy next to Joyce DiDonato and Yannick, sorry, I'm going to butcher his name, but, you know, the main conductor of the Metropolitan Opera, like I'm nominated right next to them. And that is just insanely mind-blowing.
Sorry, what was the second name you said again?
His name is Yannick.
No, not him. The first one.
Joy Schreier.
Is he like the face of the Met?
She's a metropolitan. Oh, she's a mezzo soprano. Yeah, she's a mezzo soprano, and she's like literally, I would say, the most famous mezzo soprano in the world, not just the United States. And
so, guess what?
What?
You are the most famous soprano of the Virgin Islands.
I think that's probably true. At least right now, maybe.
But Matt, you got competition. But so we have to talk about what is next for you.
So right before the pandemic, I was 38 years old, and I was sitting in a cafe in New York doing some work, and I was like struck with this thought that like I need to be commissioning more new music from composers because I know so many of them and I want to support what they're doing. And I was like trying to think of one composer who I could commission a song cycle from for some upcoming engagements. And then I was like, well, I start writing down names and like, how do I pick one off of this list? And I was like, what if I do 2? What if I do 3? What if I do 10? And then I was like, I'm going to be 40 in 2021. Like, what if I do 40 composers for my 40th birthday? And so I am. So I commissioned, this all started right before the pandemic. I was like, I know how much money I'm making as a singer this year. This is how I make all of this work. I'm going to commission 40 songs from 40 composers for my 40th birthday and call it the 40 at 40 project. I'm going to, commission the songs and then record them and do premiere concerts and just kind of try to spread the love, get my friends to perform on the concerts so that everybody gets to work. And then the pandemic happened and all of a sudden I didn't make any money. And but I still had this project to work on with all of these amazing composers. So I was sitting on this island wondering if I'd ever get to sing again, but still communicating back and forth with composers and poets and creative juices flowing and collaborations, just exploding. And it was the most fun. And again, I'm sitting there thinking, am I ever going to get to perform these songs? And I actually recorded the first 20 of them this summer. So hopefully if I can find the funding, that CD will come out next year. And then, hopefully then the following 20 will come out the following year. But it's just been it's a project that was not affected by the distance required from the pandemic. And I don't think if I hadn't had that idea before the pandemic, I think that my level of kind of depression and fear during the pandemic would have been so much higher. Having this thing to focus on, having the 40 at 40 project to just kind of sustain my artist spirit during that time was really crucial. And I'm really, all of the songs that I have in hand so far are really, really cool. And I'm very excited to share them with the world. And I hope I can do that soon.
And to have 20 done, you're halfway there. You're almost there. Yeah. And, once you win the Grammy, who knows what's going to happen?
From your lips to God's ears.
Who knows what's going to happen? But Laura, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
For coming in today and talking about, your process and your journey and, how hard it takes and the work it takes to be where you're at today. And I always end it with one last question. What do you think a professional winner is?
It's actually, I think, just kind of being true to yourself on a daily basis. Like checking back in and saying, am I being good to the people around me? And am I being an important part of making the world a better place for other people? And then secondary to that is how do I use my gifts to do that? And maybe if that helps me in the end, then, that's awesome. But we're all in this together. And if we look at it as being out for everyone, then we win too.
Thank you so much. Professional Winner family, thank you guys for tuning in. Confessions is out now. Grammy nominated Laura Strickling. You can go to Amazon, any place where CDs are bought, to get a copy of this wonderful album. And don't wait until she win a Grammy because the price will go up. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless. Have a great day.
Professional winner. Professional winner. Professional winner. Professional winner.